In mid-2007, Papa started suffering from sleep disturbances and anxiety. We didn't realise it at the time, but these were actually the first signs of Parkinson's disease. Dr. Cordato started to suspect Parkinson's in 2009, but Papa was not officially diagnosed until 2010. That diagnosis was devastating to us and an absolute shock. Papa had always been well, happy, healthy, active. He had a lot of interests. In June of 2016, we experienced our first incident of sundowning, and shortly thereafter, Papa was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease dementia.
I was travelling down to Melbourne to assist with a friend who is suffering from dementia. And this is a friend who I know quite well and care about quite deeply, but hadn't seen for a while, and went and visited him in hospital. And I'd only spent a short amount of time with him when I saw things about him that just mirrored myself. And I don't even know what those things are or were, but I just looked at him and thought, my God, I think I have dementia.
Hi, I'm Dr. Michelle Fitzmaurice. I've dedicated my life to research. There's been an awful lot of exciting work exploring the role of the microbiome in various different diseases, including neurodegenerative conditions, and there's a real focus on gut-brain health at the moment in the research. A lot of the microbiome research looks at the differences between microorganisms in people who've got a disease and people who are healthy. Some of the notable things that we see is a reduction in the microbial diversity, or the amount of those microorganisms that are present, and an increase in microorganisms that are associated with not so good things like inflammation, which we know are present in a number of those diseases.
The real change for me was a particular feeling that I started to get where I knew that I should understand things or be able to do things, and I couldn't. My frustration levels were much higher than they'd been previously. I struggled to deal with working with different concepts and so on with groups of people there. And that was something that I hadn't experienced so much before. So it was difficult because these things change gradually, but I did recognise these changes as I moved through time.
We were shocked. We were devastated, and at that point we didn't know how much our lives and Papa's life would change. As I said, Papa had always been well, and the last thing we suspected would be that he would develop Parkinson's disease. We had no family history of it, but I suppose looking back, we could already see some of the signs. The slowness in the movement, his handwriting became smaller. He had that blank stare that is part of Parkinson's.
Patients with dementia, for example, often show a reduction in the overall microbial diversity. So when we have a less diverse microbiome, it may be less resilient to disturbances and more prone to promoting inflammation.
He was very kind, generous, always putting others before himself. Papa truly lived by the belief that what you give and share with others is yours forever. What you don't share is lost. And despite his illness, Papa, his essence could never be destroyed by his illness. And there's two stories I'd like to share with you that show the essence of Papa. Papa used to like to have an apple after lunch, and because of the dysphagia, Mum started peeling the apple for him and putting the thin slices on a plate before him. Papa would pick up this plate and offer each person at the table a piece of that apple before he took one for himself. That's only a small story, but it speaks to the essence of Papa. But another story, which is much more moving. On Tuesday, the 18th of August 2020, a day before we lost Papa, we had to call the ambulance. And the ambulance came to the home and they were discussing the need to take Papa to the hospital. With less than 24 hours on this earth and very unwell, Papa turns to Mum and says to her, "Eleanor, please make a cup of coffee for these gentlemen, referring to these ambulance officers. At the time, I did not think much of it because it was Papa being Papa. But in light of what happened within 24 hours, I think that example speaks to the very, very essence of my Papa.
So for me, what made the major difference was having testing with a psychologist, which included testing with questions about memory, and that actually gave them an answer that could be measured.
1 in 12 people aged over 65 living in Australia have a diagnosis of dementia. When it comes to people who are over 90, that number is 2 in every 5 people over 90 are living with dementia. And when you think about that for Indigenous people, the number is 3 to 5 times higher.
I don't deal nearly as well with things when I'm tired, and I need to go to trouble not to do too much. So I need to go to much more effort to say no to things, and to pace what I'm doing. So I used to just say yes to everything, and continue to do things. So now I try and reduce the number of things that I'm doing, and appreciate more of the quality of things that I'm doing. It's meant that I can get much more value out of the things that I am doing. So for instance, over the last few years, I've found large gatherings, like family gatherings, really quite difficult, and I never knew why. Once I was diagnosed, it was then explained to me that I really could only follow one topic at a time. So when you're at a dinner table with a wife and 3 daughters, there's never one topic. There's always numerous topics going on. So they were fantastic in that they went to a real effort to, narrow things down to a single topic, to, change the way that we conversed. And that turned what to me had been stressful dinner times into back to the lovely time that I remembered of dinner times that we all enjoyed together.
We wanted to find a way to remember and honour Papa that was meaningful, purposeful, and helped others, just like he lived his life. So after we lost Papa, the idea of a research grant in Papa's name was born, and the research grant are specifically for research into Parkinson's and dementia and neurodegenerative illnesses. And we thought that was a very fitting way to remember him, to something meaningful, purposeful, and a way of giving to others. We hope that the recipients of the research grants will be inspired by Papa's life and his values, but also that they will go on in their own careers to replicate the standards of care that we received from Dr. Cordato.
I had one person who I went to see in the early part of the study who joined one of our healthy groups, and as I was leaving I said, "Oh, just out of curiosity, why did you join this study?" And he said, "My wife died in my arms from dementia." And he said, "Please do something." And that stuck. That's the days where the research is tough and we're doing things over and over again, or people aren't coming to the study. I still see his face and he's like, "Please make it count."
Papa was an exceptional father, husband and man. He gave us a very happy childhood, unconditional love. He was always there for us and was always interested in what we were doing. By his life and example, he gave us the template by which we should live our life and the values to which we should adhere. Papa believed in family, honesty, respect, putting others before yourself, and compassion. He believed in hard work, sacrifice, and learning and education as a way of improving one's life. Despite the fact that Papa had difficulties in his early life, he was a happy man and was never envious of those who had more or whose journey had been easier than his own.
I can't stress enough how important it is to support medical research.
We need your help to make our work more meaningful and translate this into something that can give hope to so many others. Please give generously to SSMRF.
So hopefully in the future we can find a cure for dementia.